a chance for us all to find out who you are, Justin, a bit more about you personally. And
well, as you know, this year, I keep finding out who I am.
I was going to say,
so maybe you've got more information than I
do.
have.
No, obviously for those who didn't follow it, Justin discovered who his real father was for the first time, and therefore you found out, as you say, who you were. And you thought your father was Gavin Welby, but it wasn't your biological father. Could you tell us how you heard that news, or you heard that the Telegraph were onto it?
I got a sort of mysterious email from a Telegraph reporter called Charles Moore, used to be editor, very senior reporter, and he said, I need to come and see you, it's personal and important. So I said, all right, I'll do that, and he came, and he said, I was sitting next to someone at a meal, and they said that their husband, who died 3 years ago, was in fact your real father. And I said, oh yeah, we had a lot of emails like that when I became Archbishop of Canterbury. There was someone who emailed me every week for months saying he was the real King of England and would I please take his coronation. And,
you did reply, didn't you? No.
A bit. In the end, I decided he probably wasn't.
So you didn't have any sense that this story was true?
No, because you get a lot of stuff like that. I'm sure you do too. That spoof or that, whatever.
I've honestly I've never had anyone claim to be my father except my dad. It seems quite an unusual thing.
Well, it was. It hadn't happened to me very often before, I have to say. It never happened to me before. And then, so I said to him, because, to be honest, and, I've said this before, and talked to my mother about it, that I didn't really welcome the thought of having that conversation with my mother. It's one of the things you really don't want to do. And it's unsettling for everyone, really. And so so I said, okay, let's do a DNA test and it'll prove you're wrong. Because he had DNA from my biological father, Anthony Montague Brown. And so I did a swab and he went off, and in Holy Week, the week before Easter, I was at a youth group in my own diocese, in Canterbury Diocese, with the crashing going on around me, and I felt my phone vibrate and took it out of my pocket, and it was an email, and it was from Charles, and I thought, I can't resist looking at this. So I went into a corner and looked at it, and it said it is 99.99997 or something % likely that Anthony Montague Brown is your father, and not remotely likely that Gavin Welby is your father. So I thought, oh, right, okay, and I went back to the youth group. That's how it happened.
Right, and so did that turn your world upside down, or did it?
No. Not, funny enough, I kept, there'll be lots of people here who will know that feeling that something happens to you and everybody tells you how you ought to respond. You know that phrase, you must be very upset about this. Do you know that? I can't see you, so you've either got to murmur approvingly or murmur disapprovingly.
They're definitely there.
And so people said, you must be very upset. Funny enough, I wasn't. It was because, actually, pick up something you said earlier, Jeremy, which you were quite right to say. You said, I found out I was someone different from who I thought I was. I remained exactly the person I thought I was. I was me. I just had a different father.
The Telegraph's coverage said this, and I know you, in a sense, gave them permission to run it, but this gives us a sense of how different these two men were. Where Gavin, this is them, where Gavin Welby was a chancer and a drinker, Montague Brown, an RAF hero, was hired by both the Queen and Sir Winston Churchill because of his discretion and reliability. So I wondered if, for you, the shock was that transfer between this sort of chancer fellow who brought you up and the other guy you never met.
Yeah.
You met twice, didn't you?
I'd met a couple of times, I think, when I was 6, 7 years old. That's been something that goes round and round in my mind a bit when I think about it. But the fact is, I was brought up by my, the person I call my father, who I go on calling my father in a sense. And I was brought up by him, and the experience I had of a father was him. And the fact that there was different genetics, I had different genetics. We always argue about nurture and nature, but for me, the nurture, his background was quite well known. He was brilliant, affectionate, brilliant man, very talented, professional gambler, bootlegger, so unusual.
Was he violent to you?
Yes, he was. Yeah. I mean, he was an alcoholic, very complicated. And those of you who've lived with people with alcohol, or who go to AA or something like that, who suffer from alcohol dependency or other forms of dependency, will know the wild mood swings that come, and you can go from calm and peace to real terror as a child very quickly.
Did you have happy memories of your childhood, all the same?
No. I mean, there are some. I had my mother, as she said when all this came out, and it wasn't public till then, she also was an alcoholic, and she hasn't drunk now for 48 years. And that was a real story of redemption and hope, as she put it. She was wonderful in all this. And it's redemption and hope because when I was about 12, she ran out of all her options, and she went to a hospital, state NHS mental hospital in those days, long since closed, and she spent several months there in therapy, really tough. It must have been appalling, and she came out and hasn't drunk since. And she came to faith in there as well, which was very remarkable, to faith in Christ. And she's extraordinary with that. My father, in the end, died as a result of the drinking.
So, when you were talking about getting the news and you almost didn't feel anything, seems like there's quite a lot that needs rearranging in there, or not? Maybe you can just say.
There probably is. I said this to someone earlier. They said, "What's Jeremy Vine like to be interviewed by?" And I said, he is absolutely lethal because he's so nice and so perceptive. If it's John Humphreys, you've got every guard up. I think you are absolutely, I'll answer the question straightforwardly for a change. I think you are absolutely right. There's an awful lot that's got to be settled. I think most of us, and this may be the experience of people, it will be the experience of a lot of people here, spend a lot of time in their lives, most of us probably spend time in our lives working out who we are, what we're about, settling the things that are messed up in some way or another. And I had a childhood, my mother's mother was just, who I spent tons of times with, my grandmother, was just amazing, just wonderful. She died in 2002. She was the big influence on my life, and she was extraordinary, just in her patience, very tough, but she was great. And so that gave a point of stability. So when you say, was my childhood unhappy, a lot of it was very unhappy, and there were bits that were deliriously happy.